back to another episode of Built Different with Levi Wanner. Today I've got Andrew Lindley, a good friend of mine that I met at the gym several years ago. So I know he's into fitness. He's actually running for city council here in Billings, Montana. Welcome to the show. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
So before we get started, let's just talk about like your origin story, what kind of got you into politics, what drives you, shapes your family, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was raised in Billings, grew up in the Heights.
Another Heights kid.
Yeah, I went to Alkali Creek, Castle Rock, started high school at Skyview, and then moved to Nye.
Oh.
Because my dad lived up there. For people that have been up there, there's a little white church on the side of the highway.
Yeah.
My dad was the pastor there for 30 years.
Beautiful area.
Amazing area. Yeah, so we lived 21 miles from Absaroka, and I drove that road every day and went to high school in Absaroka, and it was a great experience going to a small school.
Absolutely. For sure.
Got out of high school, spent 2 years right away working at the mine.
Okay.
Got the underground experience. That was fascinating, but I learned pretty quickly I didn't want to make that my career.
Yeah. You like the sunlight?
Yeah, I like the sunlight. I had tons of respect for everybody that does it, but it's hard work, dangerous work. So I came back to Billings, went to Eastern, right? Because it's still Eastern
back in our day. Yeah.
And after college, left Billings for 7 years, and I went out to Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And while I was there, my career has been in technology. So there, I worked for a company that did Microsoft and Cisco training. Mm-hmm. So we would teach people that worked at IT departments from companies like Nike, Intel, Columbia Sportswear. Great fun working out there, living out there. But in 2005, I came back, and I've been back ever since. Since I've been back, I worked for EBMS for 5 years.
Yeah.
That was great. Getting to know that industry, getting to know the Larson family. After that, really spent the last 13 years working at Avitas Group, and I've had a lot of different roles there, but most of it has still been focused around technology. So yeah, and I guess I would say what got me interested in politics. I would say this: city elections are the last thing that's nonpartisan. And, I don't know if I'd be running if it was partisan, because it's kind of a messy world out there from that perspective. So, I think, there's a lot of challenges that I see the city has, mostly, in my opinion, around keeping Billings to have the same kind of, spirit it's always had as we grow.
Yeah.
We've got 2 kids, they're 13 and 15, and then a 28-year-old who's married and has a 3-year-old daughter. So we got a granddaughter.
Yeah. You look great for being a girl.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But, I want to see Billings be a place that when my kids leave and go to school, that they want to come back to.
Absolutely. Billings is a great community. I mean, I grew up here as well. Was there a moment of friction that kind of hit you where I can help, there's something I can do to help my community?
Yeah. Probably the easiest one to point to and most specific is the water system changeover that impacted so many people.
Yeah.
And mainly because of my technology background and working for a big company. The big companies really focus on change management, and, reading the audit report that the city had to pay for after that whole debacle.
That's a snoozer.
Yeah, well, it talked a lot about how the people that ran that system didn't have adequate training. Then they made the system change in the busiest, heaviest water months of the year. At the same time that a bunch of billing changes were happening, rate changes.
Yeah.
And none of that is best practice at all. So, I thought to myself, that was one thing I kind of filed in the back of my head that was I think in times like that, I could bring some, hopefully maybe a little pause to just say hey, are we sure we're doing this in the right time? Because the city spent $200,000 on the audit. Now there's potentially a class action lawsuit coming. So, none of these things are good for anybody.
No, absolutely not. And do you feel like that's kind of the biggest improvement that we can make in our city is that technology and tracking and keeping everybody accountable?
Well, I think it would be a big change. One of the things I've noticed talking to people during the election is so many people don't know much about what's going on from a city perspective. Because it's not easy to find out. The city has a website and they publish the minutes to the meetings and all that. But those are not easy to read for the normal citizen.
And the meetings are not fun to sit through.
No. So, I feel like the city, it would be very easy to meet citizens where they're at. publish things about what's going on, on social media platforms. Give people the ability to sign up for alerts. Like, hey, I really care about this particular topic, parks and trails, and you get an alert every time there's going to be parks and trails on the agenda. I mean, a lot of simple things that I think could help.
Right, and Billings has gotten a lot better with trails and that kind of stuff. And it's funny, from being in the development business, some developers do a really good job of putting those parks in, and then some will give the city the land in lieu of cash to do the parks. And so for me, that's a big issue when I'm trying to sell a house and the city's just got this open piece of land that they're not doing.
Unmaintained park.
Yeah, so that is an issue for us.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll save the housing questions for the end.
Okay, that's good.
With the balance of growth and preservation, we're talking about those things: new subdivision, jobs, infrastructure. What makes sense for the city of Billings? Because we are a big growth economy here. We're still the largest city in Montana, and how can we preserve that with keeping that local feel? Because in Montana, lastly, we're getting an influx of out-of-staters. How do we keep that local feel that we all love?
Yeah, well, I know what you mean, and maybe part of it was, living in high school in a small town.
Yeah.
I got this, but you still have it in Billings. If I'm driving up my street and I drive past somebody, I'm sure you do too. You just raise your hand up, give the little wave.
Yeah, the shoe finger.
Yeah, and you're generally going to get it back, and it's always been that way. And I know that's a small thing, but just that, hey, we're on the same team because we live here and we both care about the city. I don't even know who you are driving past me. I think, I guess when it comes to the growth and subdivisions and things like that, I think the thing that I think matters the most is just making sure that the planning is done in a way that is not just how do I say this? Like at a global level for the city. So that it's being done in a way that isn't just a lot of individual little projects that don't really tie together. And when I mean tie together, I mean in different areas of town, making sure that what's put there all kind of makes sense to go together. Yeah. I think you could put certain developments in parts of town that wouldn't make any sense.
Absolutely. Because a good example of that is the McCall subdivision off of Malawi. They did a fantastic job with it.
Mm-hmm. The original.
Yeah. And it's high density, but it works fantastic. And they've done a fantastic job making it a beautiful area. But like you're saying, that might not work, on the West End or in the Heights.
We'll find out soon.
We're going to find out very soon. Yeah, we're going to find out very soon. So keeping that local feel is important to all of us Montanans. Public safety and leadership is a huge thing, especially, our headquarters is downtown Billings. And I think when you go to a city, the downtown is kind of the heartbeat of the city. Crimeless, homelessness, mental health, they're all kind of connected. What's one actionable thing the city can do to make an impact on that? Because everybody's worried about it. It's a big issue. And you coming from Portland, you know that's a huge issue.
Yeah. Well, and at the time I lived in Portland, it was late 90s, early 2000s. It wasn't nearly like what it is today.
Right.
Even though there was still an issue. Bigger cities kind of see that. Well, first of all, I would say when I did ride-alongs with Billings Police, I was really impressed with how they're handling the current situation. But they're limited on how much they can do. They can only do a certain amount of things. And so I think, one thing that's really important is to make sure that we've got a really, really good, strong, open dialogue with the police that are handling this stuff to find out, what do they think would be another tool that could help them help the people that are in these positions. I think trying to work towards more low barrier shelter would be really important. I know there's some really great groups in Billings that are working on that front where you just want to get people in, get them off the streets and safe, and give people that want to take it the opportunity to get training and work their way out. Not everybody's going to take it. And maybe if they can't just immediately start working their way out, they get easier access to substance abuse programs, mental health treatment programs. But I mean, the biggest thing I would say is giving people a spot to go to get off the street.
Absolutely.
Now in the summertime, I would say there's a lot more. We see more of it. I mean, we just do. We all see it.
Yeah.
Because people kind of come in from different areas, but especially in the wintertime, it gets pretty tough out there. But anyway, so
it's a tough environment in the winter, that's for sure. And the local businesses are the ones that kind of struggle when that's prevalent. Just because we want our everyone to feel safe when they're walking down the street.
Yeah.
And it's not from a lack of empathy coming from a business owner or someone who's not homeless, but we want to keep our streets safe and that kind of stuff. So,
yep, absolutely.
Talking a little bit about entrepreneurship and local business, Billings has a strong local business heartbeat. How do you see your role in supporting small business and local entrepreneurs, being part of the city council?
Yeah, Billings is interesting because you do have a few big employers.
Mm-hmm.
You got the refineries, the banks, the hospitals.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the biggest.
Absolutely.
And then after that, it's a pretty quick jump down to the very, pretty small employers.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, truthfully, although the big employers are the ones that get all the, those are the ones we immediately think of, the majority of Billings is employed by small employers.
For sure.
So it's critical that they've got the ability to compete, to not be, a very, very small change in taxes or in a code change where they have to maybe all of a sudden redo their signing, redo their parking. I mean, that could be just a nail in the coffin.
That's a huge
to a lot of small businesses.
Yeah.
So I think the impact of that is really important to keep an eye on. I think listening to anybody who would come forward before decisions are made is important. And then the biggest group that we really need to make sure that we're listening to on any decision that could impact businesses is the chamber. I mean, they've got a really good connection. I know Dan Brooks from the chamber is very involved. I mean, he's at every single council meeting, and he talks at almost every single council meeting, making sure that he's saying, hey, just be aware, this change would impact, this, here's what it would impact. So,
absolutely. And when you're talking about those local zoning, the local taxes, it does seem like they're geared more to those bigger employers.
Mm-hmm.
But the argument there is they're employing more people that pay more taxes and that kind of thing. But keeping that local business thriving is, super important. The local coffee shop and, the sandwich deli that's right down the street that we all walk through. We want to keep those alive.
Yeah, I think Billings, I'm this way, and I think a lot of people are. I'd much rather go to the local coffee shop, the local restaurant. I'd rather go to Black Dog than Starbucks.
100%.
So I think most people are like that. We just, in order for that to be the case, we got to make sure we don't put those business owners in there.
Absolutely. And I think Montanans are really good at that. They really strive to stay local, and which I love too as a builder, because we don't want big out-of-state builders coming in here and kind of gobbling up.
Yeah, for sure.
But cool. We'll switch a little bit to leadership and vision, because I think that's such a needed thing on our council. Not that our current city council is doing a bad job,
right?
But having that vision and a strong leadership style is super important. How do you personally define your leadership style?
Well, I'll say some words that might sound a little cliche, but I'll try to expand on it. So I mean, collaborative for sure, open. And what I mean by that, again, kind of back to the idea that it's a nonpartisan council. We need to be open to, any ideas that are on there. And I do think there's some really good council members who I know have a lot of disagreements in general, probably on topics. Like the two that come to mind right away would be Scott Aspenlater, who's also from Ward 4, and Kendra Shaw, who's from Ward 1. And I know that they have, even though they don't agree on many things, they've worked together on a lot of things too. Mm-hmm. Or if they don't agree, at least they're just speaking up and saying, here's what I think and why. I think the biggest issue that I see, and another reason why I wanted to run, is because the council has 10 council members plus the mayor. But if you watch one of those council meetings, not that I would recommend it.
I have.
But you're going to hear from 5 people, not from 11 people. Mm-hmm. And I just think that in order to have the best outcomes, we really need to hear from everybody. Because we want to hear all of the different, what are your ideas? What do you have? So I think people who have, can be creative and come up with ideas, which I think I can, and bring some experience and just the ability to listen and make a decision based on what makes sense, not just, well, okay, I have to vote this way just because.
Right, absolutely. It is nice that there's no political party lines where people are stuck in one lane and have to stay there.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes it for that open dialogue to keep there. If elected, how will your leadership style and shape how you make decisions and collaborate with the city council? We kind of talked about that a little bit, but
yeah,
maybe expand on that a little bit for me.
I think for me, one of the things is making sure that I have the time to do this.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, and talking to people, which I did talk to people who were currently on council or who had been on in years past, what I got was that, if you weren't able to dedicate like at least 10 hours a week, you're just not going to be able to be effective.
Yeah.
And
10 might be the minimum.
Yeah. Yeah. And right, there was some people who said much more than that.
Yeah.
And some people, as you know, because this is I won't call it volunteer because there is pay, but like the pay for a council member is $1,000 a month. So
right.
Nobody's living on that.
Yeah.
So you either have a job flexible enough to let you do it, or you're retired. And historically, my job would not have let me do this. I've traveled a ton all over the world. But in recent, like the last 9 months, it's slowed down a lot. So I've got the ability to do it. I can carve out that time. And my point in that is that, the agenda of what's coming up in a week or 2 weeks is well known to everybody that's on council. And there's no reason that you can't, reach out to people who like if there's something coming up on Parks and Trails, then I know I'm going to contact Christy Drake at TrailNet and just be like, hey, Christy, like tell me what your guys' opinion is on this. Or if it's builder related, get a hold of whoever I could from the building associations just to understand like what's your thought on this. Because I think the worst thing that you could do is show up there. There's way too much to be an expert on everything, but to show up without getting feedback from people who really are the experts is just, I think that's the worst.
Do some research, beat the streets a little bit. Yeah. Accountability, what kind of systems do you think we could put in place so voters could actually see where the money goes, where the change is happening?
So that's a great question, and I really throughout the campaign and seeing how hard it was for people to get information, I knew that there had to be a better way, and I knew that there was, and I thought there maybe some other cities have solved this problem, which it doesn't look like any of them have.
Probably not.
So I started working on a project with a couple people that I work with who just kind of like playing around with things to be able to load all of the data from the city, meeting minutes, agendas, budget, documents, everything into a custom AI engine so that you can get summarizations of what happened at the meetings. You could sign up for alerts. You could ask questions like, show me all of the times that, coding or like code regarding parking was talked about in the last year, and you'd see it. I think those kind of things are super important to do. So, and actually, it sounds like you utilize AI quite a bit.
Yeah.
I do as well. I think it's a must these days, but it's not.
It's going to kill us.
Yeah, probably.
But it's super fun to play with.
But until then, it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's something that I'm really excited to hopefully get launched and get access to people.
Absolutely, and I love that because it shouldn't be as hard as it is, and I will say because I deal with mostly with city planning and the building department, and they have made great strides in the last decade to be open and honest and get everything a little more streamlined. And in our industry, you have to kind of keep moving fast because everything's moving.
Time is money.
Yeah, but absolutely with technology and everything, things just keep going faster. So I will say that they've been great. So let's maybe get into the building industry a little bit because that's we have a lot of blue collar people that listen. Are you a little more smart growth or no growth in your policies? Every city wants smart growth, but when it comes time to push and shove, neighbors fight density, developers fight regulation, and nothing moves. What does smart growth really mean to you in this practice?
Well, first thing I would say is that if we don't see houses being built and commercial buildings being built, we're in trouble.
Yeah,
like that has to happen. So however the growth happens, we have to see it. Because I also think if people want to invest in businesses, they need to know that there's going to be somebody that's going to be a patron of the business.
Absolutely.
So you got to have it. I think smart growth for sure, but what I would say is that my caveat to that would be, we can't sit around and talk about what's smart for so long that we're not building anything.
Right.
Some examples of things that I've seen that kind of what you're talking about, like people fighting density. So I was knocking on doors that was close to all the projects going on by Grand and 32nd.
Yep.
And I don't remember the neighborhood there. It's kind of off of 38th Street West in Grand.
I know what you're talking about.
And then there's new apartment buildings being built
Correct.
right backed up to homes.
Yep.
And you see this row of nice single family homes that have been there for quite a while. I mean, I'm assuming maybe like even 20 years.
Probably 20 years, yeah.
And literally 10 feet from the back of their fence is a 3-story
apartment.
Yeah, multifamily unit. And I mean, I think the thing that when I saw that, I just like shook my head a little bit, because that's what makes people fight density.
Yep.
Like if you just could, and I don't know what the realistic like options are for council, but if it was just like, hey, look, let's make sure that these buildings are set off from the edge of the property by a certain amount or something.
Yeah.
I think the response would be a lot different. But every single person in that neighborhood, it's the only issue that mattered to them.
Oh, for sure.
And their response was, we hate multifamily. And it's like, well, okay, I get it, but also we need multifamily in some ways because we got to have room for all the growth. So it's a very complex issue, but I think smart growth for sure. But we got to have a lot of people at the table to figure out how that.
Absolutely, and I think the new zoning that came through a couple of years ago, there were some hiccups in it, but now all the new subdivisions have to have some multifamily and that kind of stuff. So, and I think that's maybe will solve it, because some of those new, well, I won't say solve it, it'll help integrate it a little bit, because then you'll see, most of residential neighborhoods are just all single family homes.
Yep.
In bigger cities, you do see a mix of, some commercial on the main street and then some multifamily. And then you've got the traffic congestion and stuff like that people really worry about, because they've got kids and everything like that. So it's a worry. It's not an easy question to ask or answer. So there are bottlenecks for when we're building. There's permits, inspections, zoning changes. What do you see as the biggest chokehold in our local building process? Have you researched that at all, or have you heard of anything like this?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of things, but I can't say that I know enough to say.
Not the tough question.
Choke point is. I mean, that was actually going to be one of my questions for you. Like, what do you think as a builder?
Gosh, the biggest. So for me, the biggest chokehold that I'm seeing, the building department's great. We're getting permits back in a week, 10 days, business days. They've been fantastic. The biggest bottleneck that I'm seeing is new developers aren't, like, if you go west, there's hardly any city lots with city services. All of the new developments going west, and then now some going east in the Heights, are all septic and community well, because they don't want to deal with the development process.
Yeah.
So like from the ground up, the vertical that I'm mostly in, we don't have a ton of the city's been fantastic. That's where the bottleneck's going to be, because now we're going to have all this growth west with they're not paying the taxes, they're not paying for the city water systems and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that. I think I was, I had heard that even like, tell me if I'm right on this, like soil samples and soil studies, that the cost of that has gone up just insanely in Billings, and that there's only one place that'll do it.
Exactly.
But you're only going to deal with that if you're building in the city.
Exactly.
Right? If you're county, you're not. And I mean, that whole like edge of the city, like Ward 4, which I'm running for, I mean, it looks like Swiss cheese on that edge. It's just like county, city. And I don't see how that is good for Billings long term. It just doesn't make sense to me, because you're going to have a lot of subdivisions that are beautiful with wonderful homes and everything else. But I mean, I'm confident if somebody when you have like city, county, city, and somebody in the county area is calling 911,
that's what I was
I know what's going to happen. The local police and fire are going to show up.
Yeah.
If they can get there faster than the sheriff, they will.
Because we want them to.
Yeah, we want them to. But on the other hand, they're not. That's not being paid for.
Right.
So that's just gonna cause a lot of problems. So
It is.
I would be a proponent of being more aggressive to because you get that red zone, as I understand it, on the edge, where the city does have the right to basically force people in. And I think we should be more aggressive with that.
That makes sense. If I lived in one of those, I wouldn't love it. But I think for reality, as a city, like you're saying, if a fire truck is going to a house, they're not going to be like, I'm not stopping.
Yeah, of course not.
But then again, those people have to pay those taxes as well. And that's where the next question comes in: the affordable housing, where you and I could probably sit here for hours and talk about. Everybody wants affordable housing. It's the catchphrase of national news, but the math just doesn't work with land cost, and that's one of the big problems with the developing in the city is the cost for the permits, all of that. Those keep rising. The land costs, the labor costs in Montana are through the roof. I just had Jeff Scher from Comfort Heating on here, and they can't find people to work. No one's going into those blue collar trades. So our labor costs are going up, material costs much more. And when we're building multifamily, those costs are high too. So the rents go up, the housing prices go up, and the next thing you know, we're Bozeman, where they build this brand new hospital and a nurse can't even afford to live there because they're there. So for me, that's the biggest hot button, because I do build a lot of affordable homes, but they're not affordable like they were when you and I were 20.
Yeah.
For my son who's 24 to get into a new house would be real tough.
That is tough to even define what is affordable these days.
Right.
Like my 28-year-old, he's renting. He wants to move into a house, buy a house, but whether it was interest rates or just like the cost and if it was an existing home, what neighborhood, making sure they're in a neighborhood they feel safe, and like the schools. I don't think there's a simple solution to this. I mean, I've done a lot of reading on what other places have tried. I mean, it seems like there are a few things that have worked, but really in small pockets. Like for example, things like cities donating land to be able to be used for development for affordable housing. I mean, I think that sounds great, and we do have a lot of city land that's really not being utilized at all.
Right.
So I would certainly be supportive of that. My only concern is how far does that actually take you? Is it really going to be a long-term solution? But I think that would be worth looking at. I know that a topic that's come up for the council recently has been the potential of just selling the unused city property. And just selling it to whoever is the person that'll pay the most for it, I don't think that's great for the city.
It won't solve the affordable housing problem.
Yeah. So, I think using it more strategically, like if you were going to use it for something like that, or, even in areas if a developer wanted to do affordable housing, to do something where you're going to, either discount or make the whole permitting process much less expensive, if not totally wipe it out, would be a big help. Or there's a park, I say a park with air quotes, Wilson Park, which is by the sugar beet factory.
Yeah.
And the city has already voted to approve, which I definitely agree with, 6 or 7 acres to the new animal shelter project.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So the animal shelter can build the new building without having to pay for any land. Yeah. And this unused land is going to be used. I mean, win-win for everybody.
Yeah. And then just that new project that got approved in the Heights for the 100 units. I mean, I think that's fantastic. I mean,
so creative projects like that, I think we need to be really open to help people that want to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I would say this: I don't think that forcing builders to saying well, you have to build this type of house in order to make it affordable, I don't think that would work. I just don't think it would. I think supporting people who have great ideas to do projects like that is good, but I think we've got to just be really careful about.
Yeah, and there's lots of places downtown where other cities have done tax abatements and stuff like that, where a multifamily will fit in better than in the middle of a residential subdivision. Going back to that Heights project, I think that's a great it's a good program. It fits in the density where it's already sitting. Something like that's a great example of where the city of Billings has got it right.
Yeah.
The permitting for the subdivisions and the houses is something that I feel like really needs to be kept in control. because I'm building in Billings, Helena, and Bozeman right now. We're moving into Great Falls. And we all hear about how expensive it is to build in Bozeman. And case in point, my building permit alone in Bozeman is twice as much as it is in Billings.
Wow. And how's it compared to Helena?
And Helena is a third of what it is here.
Of what it is here?
Yeah.
Oh,
We're
wow.
in East Helena.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah. So off the jump, we're $15,000 higher on a house in Bozeman than we are in Billings. Yeah. And then, and we wonder why people can't get into homes there. So those are. I mean, housing obviously is my main business, but I think it's all important from the the mental health, the homeless, all of that. I commend you for doing this because it's going to be a ton of time, and not a lot of people are willing to do that. Speaking for myself,
yeah. And I'm sure I won't get everything right, and I'm sure people will tell me about it.
I'm super excited for it. Last question, couple just real quick. City council, a long-term focus, or do you see yourself kind of keeping in politics?
I don't think that I would stay in politics outside of local city.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing it because I love Billings and I plan on staying here long term. Yeah. And I kind of feel like I've done a few other things. Like I was on the board for Art House Cinema for a few years, and that was a good season. And I feel like I can do it. I have the time, the energy. I feel like I should if it's calling to me. But no, beyond that, probably move into doing, instead of working corporate world, move into consulting, have a little more time control, and travel with my family and just have fun.
I love that. So the last question I always ask, we mostly get entrepreneurs, that aren't political and have to be correct all the time. So
Sure.
My favorite question of all time, because I grew up in sports and I worked out with you, so I might know the answer to this already. Do you love to win or do you hate to lose more?
Hate to lose.
I love that.
Yeah. No, I mean, in fact, as this week, and it's like the election's down to crunch time, and I'm starting to get really nervous about it. And I'm like, man, I'm it's killing me. And my wife just laughed and just like, yeah, you just hate to lose. She told me.
Absolutely. And it's funny because we've interviewed men and women, and it's about 90% of men hate to lose, and most of all of the women love winning more. It's just kind of the balance that we're getting. So, well, if there's anything else that we can do for you, we appreciate all your time.
Yeah.
It's a big commitment, away from your family, grandkids, all that kind of fun stuff. We appreciate you having, being on here, and it's been fun.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Go vote for Andrew.